Welcome in, everyone. We are diving straight into a fascinating timeline today, and we are so glad to have you joining us for this custom-tailored deep dive.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
We've got a source document in front of us today that, well, at first glance, you might think it sounds like a dry audio textbook.
Right. It's essentially a Wikipedia article detailing the complete history of United States senators from Arizona.
Exactly, just a chronological list of politicians. But let me tell you, this specific list hides some incredible statistical anomalies. You've got marathon careers and periods of just wild political musical chairs.
It really does, because this source tracks Arizona's representation in the Senate from the very moment of its statehood in 1912 all the way up to our present-day March of 2026.
Which covers a lot of ground.
It does, and it specifically details the staggering of what the Senate calls Class 1 and Class 3 seats, which is crucial to understanding the whole timeline.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because right out of the gate, the history of Arizona in the Senate starts with this really funny logistical quirk.
The statehood gap.
Yes, the gap. So based on the text, Arizona officially became a state on Valentine's Day.
February 14th, 1912.
Right. But they didn't actually elect their U.S. senators until over a month later, on March 27.
Which means they left those seats completely vacant during that initial window.
It's just wild to think about. You are officially a state, but your desks in the Senate chamber are just sitting empty while you wait to organize an election.
It really highlights the mechanical reality of statehood back then. But once they did hold those elections, they established their 2 Senate seats under the mechanical rules we still use today.
The Class 1 and Class 3 seats.
Exactly. U.S. senators from Arizona are popularly elected for 6-year terms, but they are staggered. They don't run at the same time.
So how does that play out currently?
Well, looking at the data, the Class 1 seat's next regular election is in 2030, while the Class 3 seat is up in 2028.
Got it. So they are on entirely different rhythms.
Right, and that matters because it ensures a state's delegation doesn't completely turn over in a single election year. It maintains a level of continuity in Washington.
It's a shock absorber for the political system.
Exactly. And what's fascinating here is the ultimate result of that design continuity. Since 1912, only 15 individuals have ever served as a senator from Arizona.
Wait, only 15?
Just 15 people in well over a century of history.
That is, I want you to just think about that for a second. Think about how many people have rotated through your own workplace in just the last 5 years.
Yeah.
And contrast that with only 15 senators for an entire state since 1912.
It's an incredible bottleneck.
It really is. So I'm looking at the early records here to figure out why that number is so low. And the longevity of these early politicians just jumps off the page.
They really settled in.
They did. You have Henry F. Ashurst, who was one of the state's very first senators in the Class 1 seat. He won that inaugural election and served from 1912 all the way to 1941.
Nearly 3 decades in one seat.
Almost 30 years. But even Ashurst gets dwarfed by the absolute heavyweight of this list.
Carl Hayden.
Yes.
Hayden is the ultimate record holder here. He was elected to the Class 3 seat in 1926, and he served from 1927 until 1969.
From 1927 to 1969. That is 42 years.
42 years occupying a single Senate seat.
It almost defies comprehension today. I mean, we are not just talking about a long career here. We are talking about multiple generations of Arizona history being overseen by a single person.
He weathered the Great Depression, World War II, the Cold War, all from that one desk.
And when one person mathematically locks down a seat for half a century, it severely restricts how many total individuals can ever join that list of 15.
Precisely. The Class 3 seat was essentially off the board for decades.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because I'm looking at another massive name on this list, Barry Goldwater, and his timeline is highly unusual.
It breaks the mold entirely.
Walk us through the Goldwater shuffle here.
So Goldwater was elected to the Class 1 seat in 1952. He served there until 1965 when he retired to run for U.S. president.
Right, which usually means your time representing your state in the Senate is over.
Normally, yes. But he wasn't done. In 1968, Carl Hayden finally retired, opening up the Class 3 seat. Goldwater ran again, this time for that Class 3 seat won, and served there from 1969 until 1987.
So he builds his career in Class 1, steps away, and then returns to claim the Class 3 seat. He essentially jumps tracks.
It's a very rare double-duty maneuver across 2 different electoral classes.
And looking further down the list, John Callow pulled a very similar trick decades later.
He did. Kell served in the Class 1 seat from 1995 until he voluntarily retired in 2013.
A solid 18-year run.
But as the source shows, he was suddenly appointed back into the Senate in 2018 to temporarily fill a vacancy in the Class 3 seat.
If we connect this to the bigger picture,
Yeah.
what do these overlapping timelines tell us?
Well, it shows a very unique pattern in Arizona's political ecosystem. You have a system where established names are continually recycled back into the fold across different electoral classes. Name ID is incredibly valuable.
They bring the veterans back because the voters already know them.
Exactly.
But that temporary return of John Kyle in 2018 really marks a turning point in this document, because we've been talking about these ironclad decades of consistency, right?
Right.
But starting in 2018, the Class 3 seat suddenly descends into absolute chaos.
The contrast is jarring. John McCain had held that Class 3 seat since 1987.
Continuing that tradition of longevity.
Yes, but he passed away in office on August 25, 2018, and that triggered a rapid-fire chain of succession.
Let's trace this timeline carefully, because it moves fast.
The seat was vacant until September 4, when John Creel was appointed,
Okay.
but Kai resigned on December 31 of that same year.
So we have another vacancy.
Briefly, yes. Then Martha McSally was appointed in 2019.
That's 3 people in 1 seat in less than a year.
And it continued. Mark Kelly then won the special election in 2020 to finish out McCain's original term, and he was later re-elected in 2022.
So you go from Carl Hayden holding the seat for 42 years to having 4 different occupants, McCain, Kyle, McSally, and Kelly, in just over 2 years.
It's a massive institutional whiplash.
And the Class 1 seat was shifting dramatically during this exact same window, wasn't it?
It was. Kirsten Sinema was elected to the Class 1 seat in 2018.
And the source notes a pretty significant affiliation change during her term.
Yes, the record shows she left the Democratic Party on December 9th, 2022 to become an independent.
And she ultimately chose to retire rather than run again.
Correct. Which brings us right up to the present day. Ruben Gallego was elected in 2024 and officially took office on January 3rd, 2025.
Meaning the current Senate delegation for Arizona, as of March 2026, consists of Democrats Mark Kelly and Ruben Gallego.
That's right. The dust has sort of settled on a completely new era.
And just to briefly zoom out and give you a complete picture of the state's current federal lawmakers, because the population has grown so much since 1912, Arizona also has 9 House representatives right now.
A much larger delegation overall.
Yeah. You have Schweikert, Crane, Ansari, Stanton, Biggs, Siscomani, Grijalva, Hamadeh, and Gosar. Just a huge modern political apparatus compared to those 2 empty desks back in 1912.
It's a completely different landscape.
So what does this all mean?
That's the big question.
We started by looking at what seemed like a simple Wikipedia table of names and dates. But as we tracked the data, we found a roadmap of deep historical stability, punctuated by these intense moments of rapid turnover and political comebacks.
This raises an important question about how we view the constant ebb and flow of congressional power. When you understand the underlying rhythm of these 6-year staggered cycles, all this turnover stops looking like random events and starts making mechanical sense.
It gives you the blueprint. And I want to leave you with one final thing to ponder based on this source data.
Okay.
Look at the stark contrast we just discussed. You have Carl Hayden's 42-year term on one hand, and then this recent chaos where the Class 3 seat had 4 different occupants in just over 2 years on the other.
The extremes of the spectrum.
Exactly. You have to wonder, is the era of the lifelong, multi-decade senator permanently over? Has politics just become too volatile for that? Or is this just a brief, chaotic chapter before the next 40-year incumbent emerges to quietly lock down a seat?
That is a fascinating thought.
There's something to mull over next time you look at a ballot. Keep questioning the data, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive.